Alright fellas, here we are back in Pokemon Masters, and today we're going to be looking at Neo Champion Nate and the Shiny Haxorus, and seeing what this sync pair is able to do and how strong they are. So this sync pair, outright going to say, is pretty damn strong. I'm not going to say he's up to the tier of strikers like Neo Champion Red, Neo Champion Marnie, Ash, these super top tier ones, but he is definitely on, the scale, right? He can definitely put in his own weight, and he's got a lot of strength packed behind those jaws that Haxorus is bearing, right? So, yeah, he's going to be dropping tomorrow alongside his own Neo Champions, a Pure and Touching Heart story event. And they decided to split him and Rosa up and put Rosa at the very end of December, probably for bait for New Year's or some other banners that are going to be coming out after that and whatnot, right? But yeah, we're going to be looking at Nate today, and yeah, so let's start off with his abilities and whatnot. He is a dragon character. He's got himself the Master Fair Scout, which releases tomorrow and lasts until January 11th. You've got over 5 weeks to pull this guy, right? Like, if I just look at this, let's see here. Going into December, we got ourselves the 4 weeks here. Yeah, you got yourselves pretty much 5 weeks to try and pull this guy. So you got yourself a lot of time. You're very, very likely going to be able to build up a pity within that amount of time. We have about 27,000 gems available here in December, and we are also definitely going to be getting the other 9,000 by the time the 11th hits around, because we get a lot of gems for New Year's. So in between that time period, you'll be fine to be able to get enough gems to be able to pity Nate, should you have to. Also, if I accidentally called Nate N in this video, I don't know why. For some reason, my mind is fucking wired to call Nate N. So, yeah. But he is a physical striker with the EX roll of Field. We are finally getting the Field and Sprint EX rolls. Big thumbs up on DNA's part. This is a good update. Finally. So, yeah. And also, the Field EX roll is very... I would say it's almost required for him to have it. Not like to play with him, of course, but like in his most optimal type of setups, like Dragon Zone, I'm not gonna say rebuff, but rebuff too, I guess. You would definitely want the Field EX roll, because if you try and set up Dragon Zone with Lucas, this guy does not synergize extremely well. So him being able to set it himself with the Field EX roll is actually far more preferred. It's definitely really good. It's probably better, in my opinion, than getting him the support, tech, or even sprint rolls. Anyway, looking at his stats, at level 140, he's got 673 health, 160 roughly in both defenses, 424 attack, the special attack doesn't matter, and 356 speed. Good offensive stat, great speed stat, solid enough defensive stats for a striker. He's not going to be taking hits, so that's about normal. With the EX roll, though, he does get 60 extra health, as well as 20 in both defenses and 40 in speed. So sadly, with the EX roll, he does not get an upgrade in attack. But that's not really going to be a big problem, because with the EX, he will be at 464, and plus, level 150, even higher than that. So his attack stat's going to be just fine, right? EX roll doesn't really matter too much, but thankfully he does get some bulk stats with that, right? So, you can maybe have him be a little bit of a tank. Nah, probably not really. But the speed is good. So yeah, there's that. I think that's about it. He's weak to drag, or fairy rather, so yeah. Looking at his moves here, he's got Scale Shot, which is bait, pretty much. It's not really that useful of a move. You can just use it to pass turns, but really that's all you're using it for. Scale Shot is not going to be something you're going to be using reliably unless you build some very specific builds in his grid that are just not worth it. But it's a 16 power minimum move with 2 gauges. It's a multi-strike move that hits 2 to 5 times with 90 accuracy, raises his speed by 1, and lowers his defense by 1. I don't remember if that's for each hit. I don't think it is. I think it's just 1 straight defense debuff and 1 straight speed buff. I could be wrong, though. He's also got himself the Trainer Move Glory of the Challenge, which returns his lowered stats to normal and raises his speed by 3, as well as applying free moves next, which is very good for his buddy move, Dark Black Outrage. Dark Black Outrage is a 4-gauge 1-use move that has a 250 minimum base power that hits all enemies, and the activation condition is when his attack is raised, very similar to Giovanni's Crushing Earthquake. I think that's what it's called, Variety Giovanni, where all you need is any amount of attack raising and it's activated. Same thing as the deactivation condition, it's just when it's not raised, right? And then the move never misses, and it reduces sync countdown by 1. So basically, you use this 1-use move, which you can use pretty much at any time, hits like a nuclear weapon, that pretty much the equivalent base power as a sync move, but it hits all enemies and it reduces sync countdown, and you will be sure to hit all opponents, even if they have evasion buffs. it's very good in that regard, right? Being able to not miss your moves is very nice, as well as it being able to do all that damage. Sadly, it is not, it is split damage because it doesn't have the damage cancellation ability here where it says the damage is not split between multiple targets. Sadly, it is split between multiple targets, but really it's not going to matter too much, mostly because he is a physical striker. So if you do use his sync move, you're going to be doing a ton of AoE damage on the enemies. Good chance you'll be able to take out the sides with it, so you won't have to worry too much about the Dark Black Outrage here having, you know, lowered accuracy, not accuracy, damage, just from being split. So it's not actually too bad in that regard. And not to mention, if you are able to hit them with the sync move and they survive, the sides survive, they aren't surviving the Dark Black Outrage. Just being honest with you. Okay, so there's those 3 abilities, and this is probably his most unique ability, the Univa Passion, whatever you want to call it. It's called the Univa Circle, I think. So it is a 2-gauge move, 2 uses, and it's targeted to the allied side. It is a field effect similar to Weather, Terrain, and Zone, though I think it only affects the allied side of play. It's what it says, right? So it's not the field. It is a field effect, but it only affects you. So it seems that enemies who are potentially from the Univa region do not get the buff, which is good, right? You don't want to make them stronger. But it increases the physical moves next of all allied sync pairs by 1, applies the Univa Circle physical to the allied field of play. The Univa Circle physical grants all of the following effects: powers up the physical attack moves and physical sync moves of all allies by 10%, reduces physical attack move and physical sync move damage taken by all allies by 5%. The more sync pairs with the Univa theme skill that are on the allied field of play, the higher these percentages are. Each additional buff is 10% and 3%, up to a maximum of 40% and 14%. So basically, it is a master passive. It is a master passive as a field effect, and it is essentially a free, if you use Nate by himself with no Univa allies, it is still a completely free 20% physical attack power buff and an 8% physical damage reduction buff, because Nate counts himself as a Univa character, as well as already having an unconditional 10% power buff and 5% damage reduction just for having the field effect up. I don't know why they have an unconditional 10% and 5%, because Nate is always going to be a character that's going to be using it, duh. So I don't know why it's like that, but still, if Nate is your only Univa character, pretty much just see this as a free 20% power, physical move power buff and 8% physical damage reduction for your allies as well. So it's basically that. That's basically all that is. And if you have multiple Univa characters, it will increase it even more. If you have 2, Nate as well as another Univa character, it will increase to 30% power and 11% damage reduction. And if you have a full team of Univa, as it says down here, 40% power buff and 14% damage reduction. So as you can see, Nate definitely works extremely well with other Univa characters, more so than probably with other Dragon characters. Though if we do want to take a look at Dragon characters from Univa, there are, I think, 2 options. One of them being not that great, one of them being a fine option. Theme skills. That's what we want. So we do have... The fuck am I filtered by? Master Fair, that's what. Yeah, okay, so we got ourselves both Irises, right? That's what I thought. We only have Champion Iris as well as regular Iris. Normal Iris and Haxorus, you're not optimally running them together. I know people are going to want to run them both together. I'll do that as well, right? You're going to want to run Haxorus and Shiny Haxorus. That's just kind of something you want to test out. And obviously she will be getting buffed by both his Master Passive and the Univa Circle, so it's actually not too bad of a power buff for her. But obviously for an optimal team composition, you're going to want to run Champion Iris more so, because she does have just higher stats, higher attack. She's got 143 power and Dragon Rush, which is not that bad at 3 out of 5. And she does have power loving and actual multiplier for her Dragon Rush, so she can do some actual damage, as well as, of course, applying extra buffs to the Univa Passion and just getting an overall strength buff from that. So she's applying both the strength to the Univa Circle, and she's receiving a lot of power from Nate's Univa Pride passive here, as well as the Univa Circle itself. And not to mention, when he EXs, or syncs rather, with the Field EX, she'll also benefit from the Dragon Zone. So it's not like you're really hindering your team too much by actually bringing Champion Iris. But there are some other characters you can definitely bring, right? I'll get into team composition here a little bit, but I'm not going to go super crazy on it. In terms of like damage dealers, for the Univa region, I've heard that Emmett is actually extremely strong next to Nate. I don't know why. I don't know how the math adds up there, but if you do bring Emmett and Ingo, you'll be getting the full Univa Master Passive as well as the Univa Circle, and Emmett will receive a massive buff in his own strength that apparently is probably... I don't know if it's better than the Rock Zone, but apparently it is a massive buff just for the Univa Circle itself. So you can run a dual striker composition there with Emmett and Nate, and you can actually get some pretty good power. So you would want to bring, obviously, physical attackers, which sadly a lot of Univa is special-based. Just looking at this, you got yourself Signature Roxy, Summer N, Special Costume Rosa, Fall Iris. Hilda is physical, so she actually worked quite well here. She does have V-Create. Hilda is actually a very solid run for this team as well, just due to her, base power. Pretty high attack stat, high damage move. What else do you need? So Hilda does apply both all the Univa stuff as well as benefiting directly from it. I don't know how well Signature N would do. You got yourself two characters here which have these high-powered moves, but they can't use them that often. So I don't know. But either way, yeah. Those are just looking at the moves for Nate, right? So looking at Nate's passive skills, we've got the Pokemon moves and Sync moves crit, which means that all of his moves are unconditional crits. Other than if the enemy has Vigilance or Crit Shield, all of his moves will just become critical hits, which is extremely strong. Of course, you don't need crit buffs. Very great. Better Than Perfect Opportunity restores 1 MP of the user's buddy move after your team's sync pair uses their sync move. Increases the user's physical moves next by 1 rank after your team's sync pair uses their sync move. So in this ability, he pretty much is able to restore 1 MP to his Dark Black Outrage, as well as giving himself a physical moves next. Extremely strong ability. Extremely. You can't make it up. This is very, very useful. Just unconditionally, because you're not gonna be using Nate's moves that often. You're just going to be wanting to use the Univa Passion to have the circle up for the boost, and then you're going to be wanting to use the Dark Black Outrage. So you would use the Dark Black Outrage, get your sync count down, doesn't really matter, but then you or your ally would use their sync move. It could be Nate, it could be a support EX, it could be another character, it does not matter. That would then restore the MP to Dark Black Outrage so you can use it again, this nuclear move again, and you would get yourself a free physical moves next to go alongside your Dark Black Outrage so you get even more power essentially for free. It's very strong. You don't have to use Nate's sync move, though it probably is preferable. You could just use any sync move and it would restore the MP of this. So that's why you should pretty much make sure that you're using Dark Black Outrage every single sync cycle, just so you make sure you can get that MP restored and you don't miss out on that power that you could have had just because you were saving it or for whatever other reason, right? So this is actually very good. This is very good. And then strategy, focus on attack. Increases his attack by 6 when its trainer uses a move. Increases physical moves next effect by 1 rank when its trainer uses a move. What the fuck is that? This guy's insane. He essentially, anytime you use Univa Passion or Glory of the Challenge, he will raise his attack by 6. Even if you have +6 attack already, he'll try it again. So if the enemy does like Terrify or something, or has an ability that lowers your attack, like they use Growl to -5, anytime he uses Univa Passion or Glory of the Challenge, he will raise his attack back to max. So that's extremely strong. I'm gonna guess that. Sorry. I'm gonna guess his Extreme Battle is gonna focus a lot on debuffs, which is gonna be hell for people who don't have Nate. But anyway, yeah, so he's able to max his attack every single time he uses a trainer move, as well as apply physical moves next. So if you want to think about it, if you want to never use Scale Shot or use it extremely sparingly, you can probably start out a turn using Glory of the Challenge twice, using Univa Passion, or sorry, no. You would probably want to use Dark Black Outrage after using your first Glory of the Challenge. Then you would want to use Glory of the Challenge or Univa Passion, probably Univa Passion, again. Then you would sync move, and after you use your sync move, you would have another +1 physical moves next on Nate, and then you would use your Dark Black Outrage again with Dragon Zone and Univa Circle up, and you would nuke the enemy. There's a lot of different ways you can make it work, but essentially what this means is anytime he uses a trainer move, he gets +6 attack and +1 physical moves next for free, and anytime he uses his sync move, he gets MP restoration for his buddy move, as well as another physical moves next. Yeah, it's that insane. The power on this guy is insane. Scale Shot is garbage, but when you have the power of this Dark Black Outrage, it really does not matter all that much. You get a ton of physical moves next, plus in the grid, he does have a lot of good nodes, which we will go over here briefly. But before that, going over the Master Passive, it's just Univa Pride. Powering up physical moves of allies, reducing damage from physical moves for allies with a total power up of 50% and a damage reduction ability of 31%. Combine that with Univa Passion, and holy shit, That is strong. You've got yourself the unconditional master passive, which is just giving your allies buffs no matter what. And then you've got yourself the Univa circle, which as long as it's activated is giving your allies even more buffs. And then if your allies are dragon, cough cough Iris, you got yourself the dragon zone if you do opt to give him the field EX roll. Nate is insane. Nate is sufficiently an insane character just in terms of overall power. That he really is. I wouldn't say his utility is all that. I would say his utility is fine because the Univa circle could be really good. But really, if you're going to be using the Univa circle, you're probably going to be focusing on using Nate's abilities and his strength more than you're going to be focused on using others. But of course, that doesn't mean you will, right? You don't have to. But it would probably be preferred. I don't know. It just depends how you want to play. So yeah, this is just 1 out of 5 Nate. He's got himself these nuclear buddy moves with a ton of physical moves next, infinite attack buffs, guaranteed crits, NPR every time he uses a sync move, or every time a sync move is landed in battle on the allied side, or from the allied side, he'll be getting himself the Dark Black Outrage MP. He's got speed buffs, which is already good because of his good speed stat. Yeah, sufficiently an insane character, I would say. How long have we been recording? 16 minutes. Fuck, I gotta go fast. Okay, so looking at 1 out of 5 here on the grid, he's got Unflappable, which isn't that great. 2 out of 5, he gets Speedster Sync 5, which isn't bad. He gets Univa C Circle physical moves up 3. He gets Dragon Zone Interference Immunity, Natural Remedy, NPR, and Dragon Zone Attack Damage Reduction. So this is basically meaning if you want to give him the Field EX, this ability and this ability are solid enough pickups. But really, the big thing with 3 out of 5 is probably the NPR, the Speedster Sync, as well as the Univa Circle power-up on the moves. This is, I believe, Nate's only multiplier for his attacking moves, especially mostly Dark Black Outrage, right? So you actually have full access to its power the moment you reach 2 out of 5, which is actually quite solid, and you get a 50% sync multiplier as well, which is fine. I wouldn't say it's insane, but really, this is the biggest thing here, is having that 30% power buff on Dark Black Outrage. That is going to make it a far stronger move. But really, in my opinion, the best way to use Nate is at 3 out of 5, where you get his nuking nodes. From just the nuking nodes alone, he does... Let me get rid of this. He gets the sync nodes, he gets Haymaker, and then Univa C physical moves, sync moves up 9, which is just a 90% power buff to the sync move whenever Univa Circle is applied. So this is strong. This plus Speedster Sync means you got yourself 240% in total multipliers, plus the power of the sync nodes, and you can actually reach all of it besides the one sync move up here, sync node up here rather, just by using a grid like this. This grid will give you the power node for Dark Black Outrage as well as all of the multipliers for his sync nuke, meaning you can make full abuse of the power of his sync move, and if you have him field EX, you can set up Dragon Zone, and then you can start making abuse of Dark Black Outrage in its full effect. You have the 30% multiplier active, you've got the Univa Circle already activated for extra power, you've got the Univa Master Passes, and you've got Dragon Zone, plus the physical moves next from using your sync move, and any physical moves next from using your trainer moves. Your Dark Black Outrage will be insane. And of course, you can practically repeat that every few turns whenever you decide to use a sync move. Because his sync move for a striker is actually quite good. It's not the best, Neo Champion Red is better, but I think it is actually one of the top striker sync moves, at least top 5, I would say. Probably not any striker sync move that's higher than that. Not many, rather, I mean. I don't know about Ash, maybe it's higher. Neo Champion Marnie, Neo Champion Marnie may be higher because her raw special attack stats so high, but I don't know. They may compete. But I would just say that Nate's sync move is going to be absolutely insane for power, and then that is going to enable you to use pretty much what's another sync move in his Dark Black Outrage. Other than that, though, that is obviously the most recommended grid, I would say. That is the most recommended grid, but you can make modifications to it that would make it not better, but it would make Nate work a little bit differently. He does have some other nodes, such as Punishing Strike 2, Scale Shot No Quarter, and Strike Attack Down 2. These abilities are pretty much for debuffing and using Scale Shot to its full effect. You would never pick this up, pretty much ever, because Scale Shot's raw power is not good. 17 times 5, 15, 30, 60, 75, 75... 85 power? That's not that great. That's not a good damaging move at all. especially for a character that has options to be better than that, and there's no multiplier for other than the same multiplier for the Dark Black Outrage. So you're really not getting too much strength out of Scale Shot here. But if you do want to use the debuffing, you've got Strike Attack down 2 and Punishing Strike 2, which basically means you've got a 30% chance to debuff defense or attack every time this move lands, which of course it can land 5 times, so it could, debuff up to 5 times, but that's going to be quite rare. This is not worth going for, ever. I would not recommend it. You are missing out on immense power from his Sync move, as well as immense power capabilities from the Dark Black Outrage. It's not really ever worth going for just over his actual damaging stuff. It does give you options, I guess, but really when the options aren't all that crazy, why would you go for it? Other things he gets is Stat Down Physical Boost 9, as well as Univa Circle Physical Extension. So the stat Physical Boost down 9, it gives you Physical Boost next when any of his stats are lowered, which is just another means to make abuse of Scale Shot. You could make abuse of it to give yourself physical moves next to then power up your Dark Black Outrage if you wanted to, but really, I would just go with his innate passive skills here, where he gets physical moves next just for his trainer using a move. So I would just make full abuse of that more than I would try and use Scale Shot's defense debuffing, especially because that means you could not bring a defense buffer, because then Scale Shot won't be able to debuff his defense. Well, any of its stats are lowered. Yeah, actually. No, yeah, that couldn't. The wording of that makes it seem weird. If the stats go into the negatives, I think this would also activate, but I think it activates anytime a stat is just lowered. So if you go from like -6 attack to -5, I think this ability will still activate, which is good. But again, I don't think it's all that great because you get a ton of physical moves next from these abilities, and physical moves next is kind of diminishing returns. It's like if you get +4 physical moves next, the difference between +4 and +5 is not all that insane as compared to like no physical moves next to +1 physical moves next, if that makes sense. So really, the amount you get from these passes is more than enough, I would say. But the real kicker ability that's not better than the attacking nodes and all of that is the Univa Circle extension, which extends the duration of Univa Circle. This is mostly if you plan on having it active for a longer amount of time, if you plan on doing a bit longer battles. You can definitely try and pick this up if you want to. I don't know the best grid to do it, as I've not tried it myself, but you can definitely try and pick it up if you desire. You can pick up something like this. This grid works fine, I guess. I don't know. I'm just kind of guessing here. I'm kind of spitballing ideas. I don't really know too much. Maybe you could pick up that, sure, I guess. You can pick up something like this if you don't want any sync nodes. You can get yourself 190% total on multipliers. You can get yourself the 30% power buff here. Or you cannot, because I didn't pick up 2 energy. Fuck. Oh, brother. Okay. Figure that one out for yourselves. Anyway. Anyway, you can still keep this multiplier with Speedster Sync, but sadly it doesn't look like you're going to be able to get the Univa Physical Sync move just because everything around it is so expensive. So if you go for a trainer move NPR, good luck. It's not going to happen. You could probably sacrifice the physical boost here if you really wanted to, but I don't know if that's the best course of action, because I think that 30% multiplier for Dark Black Outrage is just too good. So the extension could be good for both powering up yourself and allies and just not having to set it as often. But really, with how nuclear Nate is and how streamlined his moveset is, or move capabilities rather are, you can just set up this exact grid and you will get great effect. This will give you great effect for the nuke. Nate's setup is not that insane. It's pretty much use Scale Shot, maybe, it doesn't matter. Then use a trainer move, or you could just use a trainer move twice, it doesn't really matter. But basically, you would just use probably a trainer move, use Dark Black Outrage, use Univa Passion, use Nate's Sync move, or you could just, you could use the Glory of a Challenge, Univa Passion, then Dark Black Outrage, it doesn't really matter. And then you would use Nate's Sync move, do a ton of damage, then you would use Dark Black Outrage again, or Univa Passion, depending on if it's, going to be active or not. And then you would use, somewhere in that equation, you'd use Dark Black Outrage, and then after that, maybe Scale Shot, maybe Train Move again, whatever it is. But either way, the point is that his abilities and his, the way you would use him is very streamlined. There's not like any spamming attacks or anything. It's just use a Trainer Move, use this, Sync Move, use this, use this, use this. It's like a set of instructions, basically. There's no real deviating path you need to go on to use Nate all that much. It's very, it's not, I wouldn't say it's basic, because basic would just be spamming a fucking attacking button, right? Like most strikers. but it's not exactly difficult to learn. It's basically like reading the manual to the unit, right? You would just say, all right, so do this, do this, do this, and then you win. That's pretty much how it is, at least in my opinion. So overall, Nate and Shiny Haxorus are definitely very strong. Do keep in mind we don't know very much about the actual overall strength of Univa Circle. It's going to be a strong buff any way you slice it, but we don't know if it's strong or stupid strong. That's kind of what we're at with this point. We don't really know how it's working. If you want to know the math behind it, we don't know if it's additive or multiplicative, I guess. Like, we don't know if it's additive onto like a master passive or the zone effects or whatnot, or if it's multiplicative. And if it's multiplicative, if it's fucking multiplicative, that is an insane boost of power. Just let that be known. That's for people who are not like math nerds or whatever. Just know if it's multiplicative, that is an immense buff to Univa as a whole, not just Nate. It's strong for the entirety of the Univa region. But yeah, anyway. I'm going to end the video there, guys. I hope you all enjoyed. Let me know what you think about Nate, Neo Champion Nate, and Shiny Haxorus down in the comments. Very strong unit. Definitely going to go for them. I will be putting out a summon video tomorrow, showcase all of that. At least I hope so. I've got classes, finals, and whatnot, so I don't really want to fail those. But yeah, anyway, I'll see you all later. I hope you all enjoyed. Good luck on your Nate summons if you're going to be going for him. Good luck on your Rosa summons if you're going to be going for her instead, or Holiday Sycamore, or Viol, or whoever you intend to go for. So yeah, I'll see you all later. I hope you all enjoyed.